Hey, what is up guys, and welcome to another Honkai Star Rail video. Alright, so today's video will be the first of a new series I'd like to call Should You Pull or Skip? In these type of videos, I'll be covering the newly released limited 5-star, as well as providing you all with important information about the character and suggestions based off that information. Generally, videos for this new series will be less detailed compared to my character review videos, which I do plan on making for Honkai Star Rail in the near future. Alright, before I finally begin, quick disclaimer. Everything I state in this video is purely based off my own opinion. Whether you want to pull for Jing Yuan is completely up to you, and your final decision should be based off your own judgment as well as all the information I provide you in this video. And of course, a quick shout out to all the members who have joined my channel. Thank you so much for the additional support. Okay, let's start things off with the 4 stars. First and foremost, the 4 stars are all great. Normally, I'd cover the 4 stars and their skills in this type of video, but I already did that in my SEELE vs Jing Yuan video, so if you guys want the details on them, feel free to check out that video as well. I'll have the link in the description below. Instead, I'll be focusing on the main star of today's show, Big Daddy Jing Yuan. Alright, so I'm just going to quickly go over most of Jing Yuan's skills here. His basic attack is just a single target lightning attack. His skill is going to do AoE lightning damage to all enemies, and he'll gain 2 stacks, which are the hits per action on his talent, which we will go over later. I'm just going to refer to them as stacks to make it a lot easier for you guys. His ultimate also deals AoE lightning damage, and it gives him 3 stacks for his Lightning Lord. Okay, and then for his talent, I'm going to go a little bit more into detail here because this is a huge wall of text and a lot of people might get confused on what it exactly does. So he basically summons this Lightning Lord, which is essentially another character on your team. This Lightning Lord has 60 base speed and starts off at 3 base stacks. Each of these stacks are considered follow-up attacks that deal what I like to call blast damage, meaning that they will deal damage to a main target and then additional damage to the targets adjacent from that main target. The maximum amount of stacks that the Lightning Lord can have is 10. And every time the Lightning Lord gains a stack, he'll also gain an additional 10 speed. The speed and stacks will be reset to the base value after every time the Lightning Lord makes an attack. If Jing Yuan is knocked out, the Lightning Lord will disappear. And if Jing Yuan is CC'd, the Lightning Lord cannot attack. So that's my brief summary of the Lightning Lord's talent to make it easier for you guys so you don't have to read this entire wall of text. Hopefully you guys got the gist of it. And then for his technique, it's just a self-buff outside of battle. When the battle begins, he'll get an additional 3 stacks on his Lightning Lord. Alright, now let's quickly go over his major traces. His first trace is basically saying if the Lightning Lord has 6 stacks or more, that Lightning Lord will get an additional 25% crit damage. For his second trace, he basically just gets an additional 15 energy upon entering the battle. And his third and final trace is quite important. After he uses his skill, he'll increase his crit rate by 10% for 2 turns, so that's just free crit rate stats. And what traditional main DPS doesn't want additional crit rate? I'm not going to go over his Eidolons. In my previous video, I already stated that his Eidolon 1 is just more additional AoE damage, which he already does plenty of. And odds are, if you're concerned about his Eidolons, you probably are going to pull on Jing Yuan's banner anyways. Okay, now let's go over the potential light cone options for both free-to-play and spenders. For free-to-play, your best option, well, pretty much your best and only option, is the Seriousness of Breakfast. And you can get copies of this Lycone from either the Forgotten Hall shop, Echo of War weekly boss, or 1 or 2 from the main storyline. And the ability for this Lycone is that it increases the wearer's damage by 12%, and that includes all forms of damage, whether it's his skill, his ultimate basic attack, even his follow-up attacks on his Lightning Lord. And for every defeated enemy, the wearer's attack increases by an additional 4%, and this will stack up to 3 times. Keep in mind this is only Superimposition 1. When we get to the max level of Superimposition 5, it goes up to 24% increased damage, as well as an additional 24% attack increase if you defeat up to 3 enemies. The other free-to-play option, although technically isn't available to everyone, there's a chance you can pull this Lycone from the gacha, is the Birth of the Self. And what this Lycone does is it increases the damage dealt by the wearer's follow-up attacks by 24%. If the current HP of the target enemy is below or equal to 50%, it increases the damage by follow-up attacks by an extra 24%. So obviously, the attacks from Jing Yuan's Lightning Lord are considered follow-up attacks, so this Light Cone will greatly benefit and boost up the damage provided by Jing Yuan's Lightning Lord. Of course, you have to get this light cone from the gacha, and odds are it's going to be a lot more difficult to superimpose this light cone compared to the other free-to-play option. Now let's talk about the options for the spenders. For this light cone, today is another peaceful day. This is the Battle Pass light cone. And for this light cone, after entering battle, it increases the wearer's damage based on their max energy. Damage increases by 0.2% per point of energy up to 160 energy. Jing Yuan's ultimate cost 130 energy, or that is his energy cap. So this light cone will provide an additional 26% damage bonus to Jing Yuan at Superimposition 1. So at Superimposition 5, it will provide an additional 52% damage increase to Jing Yuan. Overall, I'd say it's not a bad option for people who are willing to spend a little bit in the game. And of course, we have to take a look at his signature light cone from his gacha, Before Dawn. And what this light cone will do is it will increase the wearer's crit damage by 36%, increases the wearer's skill and ultimate damage by 18%, and after the wearer uses their skill or ultimate, they gain this buff that I'm not going to attempt to pronounce. Upon triggering a follow-up attack, this buff will be consumed and the follow-up attack will increase by 48%. And I guarantee you, just based off this light cone's ability and the higher base stat you get since it's a 5-star light cone, you will notice the damage difference between a Jing Yuan who has his signature light cone and one that does not. So for those of you who are willing to spend a little bit more in the game, I would probably recommend getting his signature light cone if you plan on summoning for Jing Yuan. And last, I'm going to quickly mention the standard 5-star light cone for the erudition path, Night on the Milky Way. So for this light cone's ability, for every enemy on the field, it'll increase the wearer's attack by 9%, and this can stack up to 5 times. When an enemy is inflicted with weakness break, the damage dealt by the wearer will increase by 30% for 1 turn. Night on the Milky Way is okay for its base stats, but the ability is unreliable, because if you're using Jing Yuan, there really shouldn't be multiple enemies on the field after the first few turns. And the increased damage dealt buff you get from weakness break only lasts for 1 turn. So overall, I'd say this 5-star light cone is rather underwhelming, at least compared to Jing Yuan's signature light cone. Alright, now let's go over Jing Yuan's pros and cons. Starting off with the pros. Jing Yuan does tons of damage, both in the form of AoE and single target. He's by far the strongest AoE damage dealer in the game as of now. Under certain situations, one can argue Clara does more, but once again, that comes down to variance. For single target damage, he falls a bit short compared to SEELE and Yang Qing, but that's to be expected since they are both hunt characters and Jing Yuan is an erudition character. Technically, Jing Yuan isn't even supposed to deal high amounts of single target damage because he is of the erudition path. But thanks to his insanely overloaded talent, he's able to be on par with some of the hunt characters. Let me show you guys his level 10 talent. Now if we take a look here, for this part it says, each hit dealing lightning damage equal to 66% of Jing Yuan's attack to a random single enemy. Of course, the adjacent targets will receive 25% of that damage dealt. 66% of Jing Yuan's attack, and on average, you'll have around 6 to 8 stacks. So if we take that and multiply by 66% of his attack, that is roughly 400 to 500% of Jing Yuan's attack, which can crit per hit. I want you to keep that in mind. Each one of these hits or stacks can crit. It's absolutely insane, man. I don't know what Hoyoverse is thinking releasing a character with this amount of insane damage multipliers. Like, before its release, I already saw the numbers and I knew something was wrong. And I predicted that they might nerf his numbers a bit, but it seems like they kept it the same. So Jing Yuan's just going to do a lot of single target damage as well. Which leads me to his next pro. He has very good late game scaling. Because his Lightning Lord's hits can individually crit, his damage can be multiplied to insane levels in the late game. He also has bonus crit damage and crit rate stats in both his major and minor traces, like I've shown you before. And when you pair him with an offensive support like Bronya or Ting Yang, his late game damage is just multiplied and scaled even further. It's ridiculous. For his next pro, he absolutely destroys break bars. And this is mainly because of his Lightning Lord's AoE follow-up attacks. Most other characters can only rely on their basic, skill, and ultimate to chip away at enemy break bars. Some characters like March 7th have a few follow-ups as well, but none of them come close to the number of times Jing Yuan's Lightning Lord can strike. With the exception of Clara, but even then, comes down to variance how many times Clara actually gets hit. Each hit of the Lightning Lord does 0.5 or half the break bar value of a basic attack. So on average, the Lightning Lord will do about 3 to 5 basic attack worth of break bar value. Combined with his skill and ultimate, you can probably already see Jing Yuan's potential when it comes down to destroying enemy break bars. And for his last pro, he is one of the most flexible main DPS characters in the game. Since Jing Yuan is able to deal large amounts of both single target and AoE damage, he is able to fill the slot of both of these roles. And because of his low base speed, he doesn't consume as much skill points when compared to other main DPS characters such as SEELE and Sushang. This makes him a lot easier to build teams around or simply slot into any team. Like for instance right now, one of my teams is Dan Heng, Serval, Natasha, and March 7th. This is my second team for the Forgotten Hall. If I actually managed to pull Jing Yuan, I would just replace Serval and put Jing Yuan in there, and he would work perfectly fine. As Dan Heng wouldn't need to use his skill every turn, so he will be essentially close to a skill point neutral unit. Both Natasha and March 7th only occasionally need to use their skill, so they'll be generating skill points. And Jing Yuan, for the most part, will be using his skill, but since he's not that fast, he's not going to be using up as many skill points as opposed to someone like SEELE or Sushang if I put them in this team. Alright, now let's dive into his cons. First and foremost, he has a high energy cost for his ultimate. His ultimate costs a total of 130 energy, which is the same as Ting Yung's. 130 energy is an above average energy cost, and it's also an awkward number for Jing Yuan. Since his skill generates 30 energy, after 4 uses of his skills, he'll be short 10 energy from being able to use his ultimate. And in order to obtain that 10 energy, he's either going to need to receive hits or kill enemies, both of which are unreliable. However, Ting Yung does solve this issue well with her ultimate, therefore she is an excellent partner for Jing Yuan. Moving on to his next con, which is that his Lightning Lord can be inconsistent to stack. How well you are able to stack Jing Yuan's Lightning Lord is going to be dependent on the team you are running with Jing Yuan, as well as the amount of speed your Jing Yuan has. If you don't manage stacking the Lightning Lord well, there will be situations where you are either understacked, which is less than 6, you want either 6 or more stacks usually on your Jing Yuan because of one of his major traces, or you are overstacked at 10 stacks, and this will lead to you wasting either skill points or energy. This means that players who plan on using Jing Yuan efficiently will need to plan out and organize their turns more often than the traditional playstyles and teams. Which leads me to his next con. His Lightning Lord targets are random. Unfortunately, you are not able to pick the target for the Lightning Lord's attacks. In fact, it's not just the first attack that's random. Every single hit of the Lightning Lord's attacks are chosen at random. Obviously, this won't be an issue in single target boss fights, but in fights with multiple enemies, this might cause some issues in terms of efficiency. And finally, for his last con, there are other alternatives available. Serval being the budget option with less AoE damage overall, and little to no single target damage. Kafka is another AoE lightning damage dealer coming in the near future. However, she has a different playstyle based around DOT teams, so one might argue that these two may or may not have competition with each other. And in general, there's just an overabundance of lightning characters in the game at the moment. We have Bailu, Ting Yung, Arland as well. That's like what? 6 lightning characters if we include Kafka? So yeah, there's definitely plenty of other lightning options available. And now we come to the final question that everyone has been asking for. Should you pull or skip Jing Yuan? For those of you who only want the 4 stars on the banner, I recommend you only do roughly 40 to 60 pulls max, basically what I did in my Jing Yuan summoning video. For those who skipped SEELE and plan on pulling Silverwolf and Luocha, who are the next upcoming limited 5 stars, I'd say you can probably go to 75 or 90 pulls, which is roughly around soft pity for one 5-star character. If you lose the 50-50, just forget about Jing Yuan and move on to the other 2 limited 5 stars. Next, if you skipped SEELE, but you want or need a top tier main DPS unit now, then go for it. All in, pull Jing Yuan. And of course, if you like the character, you like his design, you think he's an awesome character, then pull for him. Go for it. Go nuts. Now, if you're broke from the SEELE banner, you've spent all your special Star Rail passes and your Stellar Jade, then obviously you should probably skip Jing Yuan. Plus you already have SEELE anyways, you have your main damage dealer. And for those who have already built Serval as their AoE damage dealer, you should probably skip Jing Yuan as well, as she does pretty much the same thing, just a little less AoE lightning damage as well as little to no single target damage. And finally, if you guys plan on pulling for Kafka on her limited banner, you should probably skip Jing Yuan's banner, as they both fill the role of an AoE lightning DPS character, even though they both have different playstyles. I mean, if you guys want, you can pull for both of them. They work on separate different teams. Kafka works on a DOT team, whereas Jing Yuan works on a traditional DPS team. So it's honestly up to you, but I'd still recommend skipping Jing Yuan if you plan on pulling Kafka. Okay guys, well that's going to be it for this Honkai Star Rail video. Let me know in the comments below if you guys are pulling for Jing Yuan or if you guys plan on saving for a future limited 5-star character. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, or join if you wish to support my channel even further. But other than that, I'll see you guys in the next Honkai Star Rail video. Peace!